Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, we want to discuss the sacred season. Alhamdulillah, this was perfect timing that the monthly seminar happened to fall on a Friday and also the first of Dhul Hijjah. So, the beginning I want to talk about what we know as holiday spirit. Holiday spirit, these first 10 days, these are days of holidays for the Muslim Ummah. If we see and if we compare Muslim holidays to non-Muslim holidays, and how just this is the last month in our year, and how Muslims we celebrate the new year versus how non-Muslims celebrate the new year. We start off our year with the month of Muharram. Muharram is sort of a month of mercy, and as we progress through the year, we have significant events that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us that they're significant. Not, for example, a nation got together and decided today is going to be Labor Day or today is going to be Mother's Day, and we give our own significance to that event. No, but throughout the year there are many events, important dates that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, He informed us that these are significant events. And who made their significance? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made their significance in the heavens. So we go to Rajab, then we go to Sha'ban, there's the 15th of Sha'ban, then we go to Ramadan, and the pinnacle of our Muslim calendar is these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And this is in contrast to the non-Muslim calendar, where you start off with January. And in the Desi community, our Ustad used to always say that, the Desis, they can't really pronounce January. So they say Janwari. And Janwar in Urdu means Urdu. And Janwar in Urdu means animal. So that's exactly what we see when the non-Muslims, they want to celebrate the new year. You have so many different types of parties. You have office parties, you have school parties, you have night parties. And so many young Muslim men and women, they unfortunately fall into this. And the non-Muslim, when he celebrates, then he forgets about the dunya, he forgets about who he is, he forgets about his izzah, he forgets about his dignity, and they commit extra sins. Whereas Muslims, when they celebrate, then, for example, our biggest celebrations of the year, the two Eids. In our celebration, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to pray more salah. In our season of holiday, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to fast even more, to pray even more, to give more charity. This is how a Muslim celebrates versus how a non-Muslim celebrates. So our Ustad used to say, Maulana Abdul Hamid Saab, our principal from Darul Mazadville, he used to make a corny statement, but how that's why maybe it was the barakat of that we remember it. He used to say, make your holidays into holy days. Not holy days, meaning don't make your holidays filled with holes where you spend so much effort in studying and you spend so much effort in doing good deeds, but then when it's vacation time, then everything goes down the drain. Don't make it holy days, but make it holy days, pious days where we become even more pious. Inshallah, if we respect these great days of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we'll see how great these days actually are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whoever respects these great signs of Islam, whoever respects these great signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that shows that he has taqwa in his heart. So the more importance we give to these 10 days, it just shows us how much more taqwa we have in our hearts. This is another question we have to ask ourselves. How many of us are in the holiday spirit? Unfortunately, very sadly, for many of us, perhaps even for the majority of the ummah, it means very little or nothing. We don't attach any importance to these days. Maybe because we don't know about it, but we don't increase our ibadat in these days. We don't ask people for dua in these days. Even sadder, we might not even consider abstaining from sins even more during these days. And these days must be respected and honored. So if you there's a season, and I'm trying to explain this concept of season. There's a season, there's a holiday season, there's a business season when business is booming, there's a sports season where, basketball season, football season, everybody just gets into that mood. And when December comes around, then the businessman, he knows that this is the time where I can make my money. The holiday maker, he knows this is the time people are going to buy their tickets. So they want to capitalize on these opportunities that come in the year. The same way when these 10 days used to come, we'll see how the Salaf, how the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, they used to just turn on their switch and they used to become so ecstatic because this is a chance now to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we don't know these days, the Muslim calendar, if we don't know these days of Hajj, and if we don't give it any importance, then it shows that we don't have any connection with what's going on, especially with the Hujjaj that are over there, and we don't have any connection with our Marakis, our headquarters, which are Mecca and Medina. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves these days. So, before we get into the meat of the discussion, we should introspect and reflect and think that this great event of Hajj now is taking place. And it takes place every year. Are our thoughts with the Hujjaj? Because you have an extremely large portion of the Muslim Ummah, they are there now and they are performing their Hajj and they are sort of our representatives on behalf of our communities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we make dua for those who are in Hajj? I mean, we ask them for du'as, but are we being connected to them? They're so far away. Are we making even one dua for them? Do we think about them? Or do we only think about them if we have a family member there? Or if we only have our friends there? Or if we only have one of our ustads there? We should be thinking about them very often because, these are millions of people proceeding for Hajj in these blessed days. If we're not making dua for them, and if we're not connected to them, this momentous occasion of Hajj, it shows our poor affiliation with Islam and Deen. It shows a weakness in our Iman because our greatest commodity is our Islam. And it's such a great assembly of Islam, and yet we do not have a connection with Mecca and Medina. Naturally, if we have this connection, this dua would automatically be made for the Hujjaj. How should we treat this gathering? We should treat Hajj because we're not able to, unfortunately, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us all there many, many times, and may He grant us the ability to have Hajj maqbool, accepted Hajj, Hajj mabrur, and accepted Hajj. But because we're not there, what should we be thinking and how should we feel because we're not there? So our Ustadh used to give us an example of someone who he wants to participate in a wedding of a very close family member. And this family member, he grew up with him, he grew up with her, and they're about to get married. And unfortunately, on the wedding day, due to some sort of unforeseen circumstances, that person wasn't able to make it. Even though that person wasn't able to make it, he might have fallen sick, or the tickets didn't work out, something like that. His heart is still there. His du'as are still there. And he's always thinking about it. He always has this worry and concern. How is the wedding going? I hope everything went successfully. And his heart longs to be there. That's how we should feel with our fellow Hujjaj. We're not there with them, but we wish we could have been there with them. And the Ummah is performing Hajj. I explained this part. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave us so many opportunities to become similar to the Hujjaj. Even though we're not there, we're not involved in this great ibadah of Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us many chances to become similar to the Hujjaj. One of the similarities is they will be in the state of Ihram and they will be reciting Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. While we are not reciting the Talbiyah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a different form of dhikr to do in these days. We, on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, all the way until the 13th of Dhul Hijjah, we have the takbirat of tashriq. And this takbirat of tashriq, this will harmonize us with the Hujjaj. And so this is one of the ways we're similar to the Hujjaj. Another way is Hazrat Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, when any one of you sights the moon of Dhul Hijjah and any one of you intends to perform the udhiyah, offer the ritual sacrifice, then do not let him touch his hair and his nails, meaning he shouldn't cut his hair and his nails. So just as how the Haji, he or she is in the state of Ihram. And in the state of Ihram, they're not allowed to cut their nails, they're not allowed to cut their hair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying those who are about to do this sacrifice, they can also be part of this, similarity. They can look like a Haji, they can look like someone who's in the state of Ihram. And inshallah, if we occupy ourselves in this way, if we recite these adhkar that are meant to be for these days, and if we also want to look like the Hujjaj, then our hearts will also climb to the Hujjaj and this great event of Hajj. And very fortunate would be that person who might be here in Lombard, Illinois, in Chicago, but his body is here, but his heart is connected with Mecca and Medina. Whereas there might be someone there, but he's busy shopping and he's busy doing all the other things, and his heart is in Dubai, his heart is in America because he's in the shops, his heart is in Paris, his heart is in London because that's all he's seeing, and he's not seeing the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this reality. Now, getting into the virtues of these 10 days, what are these 10 days? These 10 days are, the more I studied about them, the more I realized, subhanAllah, I also didn't know that these 10 days held so many virtues. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, when he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that on none of the days is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desired more than in these first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. The fast of each of these 10 days, the fast of each first, second, third, fourth, all the way up to the 9th, it's equal to 1 year nafil fast. And the worship of each of these nights is equal to the worship of Laylatul Qadr. There's a discussion in the scholarly circles that we always understood that the nights of Ramadan, these were the greatest days of the year. Why? Because Ramadan has Laylatul Qadr. But then the other discussion comes where the other group, they says no, that these are actually the greatest days. وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath on these 10 great nights, these nights of Dhul Hijjah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't take oath on, these simple and mundane things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only takes oaths on His greatest of creations. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا, by the sun. وَالْقَمَرِ وَمَا تَلَاهَا, by the moon. وَالْعَصْرِ, by time itself. وَالْقَلَمِ, by the pen. These great creations Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking a qasam on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath on these days to show how important these days are. So the crux of the discussion was that the scholars, they say that the nights, the last 10 nights of Ramadan, they are the most virtuous nights in the year. But the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, they are more valuable than the 10 days of Ramadan. So that's how they sort of harmonize the two riwayat. Some more virtues, we see Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he reports that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that there are no other days in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves good deeds more than these 10 days. The people asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, not even jihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And we know jihad to be like the ultimate amal. The ultimate amal, where a person, he sacrifices his time, he sacrifices his wealth, he sacrifices his life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we hear the narration that before one drop of blood touches the ground of a martyr, then all of his past sins are forgiven. So the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he replied, not even jihad for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except in the case of that man who goes out giving himself and his wealth for the cause of Allah ta'ala, and he comes back with absolutely nothing. And this hadith is reported in Bukhari. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that these are the best 10 days in the entire world. So naturally, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he shows so much importance to these 10 days, then you see the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, how they receive these days and how they welcome these days. Hazrat Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that it used to be said by the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala alayhim ajma'in that every single day from the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah is equal to 1,000 days. And the day of Arafah itself is equal to 10,000 days in virtue. This is reported in Shu'ab al-Iman. So the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, they never used to speak, you can't make up virtues. I mean, if you don't have that direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't just say, okay, if a person, he prays 2 rakats in the right corner of the masjid at 10:45 in the morning, then he's going to receive such and such reward. So the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, they're not going to make up reward. So that means they definitely heard this from Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That's why they were acting upon it. Trickling down from the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, how the tabi'een and the tabi'een, how did they treat these days? Is narrated about Hazrat Sa'id ibn Jubayr. He passed away in 95 Hijri, that when the days of Dhul Hijjah began, he would strive to increase in good actions with great intensity until he was unable to increase anymore. Some of the Salaf, they used to say that they used to be so particular about their worship during, just in general, that they said that if someone told me that this was my last day I was going to live, then I wouldn't change anything I would be doing. Because the way I live every single day, I perform all those actions as if it was my last day I was going to live. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us to that stage where we can see Jannat and Jahannam, inshallah. He would also say, don't put off your lights. La tutfi'u siraj. Don't extinguish your lights in these 10 nights, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves when a person worships in these nights. Hafs ibn Asakir, rahimahullah, he would make i'tikaf in these 10 days. I mean, these are just a few incidents of how people would treat these days. When, for example, daylight saving time comes, the entire nation shifts. Everybody changes their schedule because a significant event has occurred. So when when Ramadan comes, we shift. We schedule our lives around salah. How can I perform my salah in the masjid, in jamaat, or in somewhat capacity? They change their normal schedule to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I also appreciate the fact that you're giving us this opportunity to come closer to you. So these are also one of these 10 days. So just to make an action plan about what we should be doing during these 10 days, we should read lots of Quran. Lots of Quran means each individual person in his own capacity, he recites however much he can. If we recite 2 pages a day, we should increase it to 3 pages a day. If we recite 3 pages a day, maybe increase it to 5 pages a day. If we recite 5 lines a day, we should increase it to 10 lines a day. The goals for Hufad and for those people who have a lot of courage, they should try to complete 1 khatam in these blessed 10 days. Because as we've seen, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam used to say that these are the best 10 days of the world. We should pray lots of nawafil. One thing, the Hujjaj are going there to perform their Hajj, but there are so many nawafil salah. Salatul duha is one salah I want to highlight, where Anas ibn Malik, he reports that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, whosoever offers Fajr salah with jama'at in congregation, and after Fajr salah he sits until after sunrise, and then he offers 2 rakats of salah, of ishraq salah, then he will receive the reward of 1 complete Hajj and 1 complete Umrah. Subhanallah, 1 complete Hajj, 1 complete Umrah. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he repeated the words complete 3 times. 3 times. Complete, complete, complete Hajj and complete Umrah. We're sitting here in Lombard, Illinois. We're not going all the way to Mecca to perform Hajj, but Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hadith is narrated in Tirmidhi with a sound chain. He's saying that we can, sitting here in the comfort of our own home, we can have complete Hajj and complete Umrah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to make amal, inshallah. We should try to be particular not only of our fard salah, we should try to be particular about the nawafil before and the sunnah before and the nawafil and the sunnah after our salah. Even more particular about that. If usually we don't pray the 2 rakat nafil salah after dhuhr salah, then we should try to pray those nawafil at least during these 10 days. And inshallah, through the barakah of these 10 days, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts it in our heart that we end up praying these nawafil for the rest of our lives. We should make tahiyyatul masjid, we should make tahiyyatul wudu, we should pray salatul tawbah, we should pray salatul hajjah, we can make salatul shukr, we can pray qiyam, we can make tahajjud at night. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying that each one of these nights is like Laylatul Qadr. How frankly in Ramadan do we scramble and do we, try to search for these nights of Laylatul Qadr. But here Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying that each one of these nights is equal to the virtue of Laylatul Qadr. So we should definitely try to make use of this opportunity. We should try to pray Salatul Tasbih. It was a gift that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave to his uncle. We should make lots of dhikr. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar, there are special adhkar, there are special dhikr to be made during these 10 days. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar, he said that Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he told the Sahaba to, during these days, to recite Tahleel, La ilaha illallah, Takbir, Allahu Akbar, and Tahmeed, Alhamdulillah. So this is narrated in Musnad Ahmad. So if we recite Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, just constantly reciting this third kalima, Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, just constantly reciting it in our houses, encouraging our family, encouraging our children, encouraging our spouses, encouraging our friends to just recite these adhkar, because Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us during these days make lots of dhikr. And make lots of istighfar, make lots of tawbah, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy is, at its peak during these 10 days. We'll get to that. Keep lots of fasts. So Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, for each fast, we get 1 year of thawab. Where are we going to get a deal like this throughout the rest of the year? And the day of Arafah itself, that 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said that not only 1 year, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives 1 year of past sins and 1 year of future sins. So if we don't have the strength to fast during these 8 days, at least make it a point that on the 9th of Arafah, that day we definitely have to fast. Our families have to fast, our children have to fast. Keep lots of fast. Give lots of charity, lots of sadaqah. We can make many nafil udhiyah. We can make many nafil qurbani. There are many people who don't have meat. We can send nafil udhiyah to them and make lots of dua. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like how the Hujjaj, we send our du'as with them, and they will be on the plains of Arafah begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hours and hours making dua for us. We should also be making dua for the ummah at large. We should, the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is there on the plains of Arafah is the same Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is here. So if we call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will respond to our duas. If we keep on doing lots of all of these things, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us lots of reward. And that's exactly what we want from these 10 days. The day of Arafah, I'm going in a progression, meaning during these first 8 days, this is what we should be doing. Then on the 9th of Arafah, this is what we should be doing. On the day of Eid, this is what we should be doing. When we're slaughtering, this is what we should be doing. And after Eid, what we should be doing. So now we're on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day of Arafah. Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates that the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that there's no day in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets free more servants from Jahannam than the day of Arafah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy descends. He boasts to the angels and says, what do these people want? What do they want? What are they asking of me? I'll give them whatever they want. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in another hadith, it narrates that apart from the battle of Badr, Shaitan wasn't seen more destroyed and more humiliated than he's seen on the day of Arafah, because all of his plans failed. The whole year you're trying to make everyone commit sins. The whole year you're sending a group of people to Jahannam. The whole year you are, with your plans, and you make so many preparations, but then one day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives wholesale. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, the best thing you can say on the day of Arafah is this: La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. So then the first 8 days we will be reciting Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. And then on the day of Arafah we will be reciting this: La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. Being a member of the scholarly fraternity, and speaking to the general public, I can tell you one thing for sure, a secret of the ulama that the general public, they don't know, is that when Arafah comes and the Friday before Arafah, every single imam, he'll be speaking about Arafah on that day of Friday. So that's one, so whatever masjid you're going to go to, just be prepared to hear about Arafah on that day, inshallah. Then we come on Eid al-Adha. This is actually the greater of the two Eids. Unfortunately, what happens, the culture is, because we worked so hard during the days of Ramadan, 30 days fasting, 29 days fasting, praying long rakats at night, and the imam recites so long, so then when we celebrate, we actually really celebrate during Eid al-Fitr. But the greater of the two Eids is Eid al-Adha, because this season of the month of Dhul Hijjah, this Hafiz ibn Hajar, he mentions in Fath al-Bari, he says that this is a time where all 5 pillars complete Islam. This is the only time of the year that's going to happen. You have your Iman, definitely. You have your Salah, definitely. And you have your Nawafil fast. You have your Sadaqah, your charity that you're going to be giving in this month. And then you have these days of Hajj. And you have Hajj being performed. No other time of the year do you have these actions being performed. And Hadrat Abu Umama radiallahu anhu, he reports that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that especially during these 2 days of Eid, the days of Eid are also special nights of ibadah. That person who remains awake in Eid during Eid, and he's seeking and he has hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a reward, then Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam saying that his heart will not die when the hearts will be dead. And this is the day of Qiyamah. This is when we need it the most. If during a day of celebration where a person, he sort of, ibadah is the last thing on his mind, because he's out partying, he's out eating food, merrymaking with the family. When ibadah is the last thing on his mind, if that person can make ibadah his priority on that day, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will keep his heart alive. The etiquettes of the day of Eid, we should wake up early in the morning, brush our teeth with the miswak. These are all sunnah. Have a bath, have a ghusl, put on your best clothes, use itr. On the day of Eid al-Fitr, it is sunnah that before going to the Eidgah, the place where Eid Salah is being performed, it's sunnah to eat something sweet before going. But Eid al-Adha is different. You shouldn't eat anything before you go for Eid Salah. Actually, the first thing that should be entering your stomach is, it's supposed to be, and this was the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it was supposed to be the meat of the Qurbani that was sacrificed. Some narrations say that it was the liver of the animal, because Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to like the liver, and liver, it cooks very fast. Hadrat Shaykh Mullah Zakaria rahimahullah ta'ala, when the day of Qurbani used to come, he would eat the meat for 3 days. He wouldn't eat anything else, not even roti. He would just eat the meat, and he would say that this is diyafat, this is mehman nawazi, this is hospitality from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should recite the takbir of tashriq in a loud voice while going to Eid prayer. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, walillahil hamd. Whatever tune you want to recite it with, but the idea is all the Muslims, the presence of the Muslims should be known during that day. That's why when you return from the Eid prayer, you should return from a different route. So it just seems like Muslims are everywhere. The non-Muslims know that this is a Muslim's holiday. So they too get affected by the spirituality that's pervading. Now we finished Eid Salah. We did the first 8 days, then we did the 9th day of Arafah, then we did Eid Salah before Eid. Now after Eid Salah, what happens? Now we come to Udhiyah, the Qurbani, the ritual sacrifice. To make it simple, we will ask a few basic questions. When do we slaughter? What's the timing? When are we allowed to slaughter? Who has to perform the Qurbani? Obviously, it's not going to be fard and wajib on every single person. Which animals can we slaughter? You're not going to be slaughtering a goose, for example. And how to slaughter, the sunnah method, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. So when should we slaughter? Qurbani can only be performed. In Qurbani, this might seem like an Urdu word, but it has its origins in Arabic. That's a separate topic. But Qurbani can only be performed during the 3 days of Eid, namely the 10th, 11th, and 12th of Dhul Hijjah. So, say for example, a person right away after Salah, he's not feeling well or he doesn't feel like doing Qurbani that day, he does have leeway to go into the 11th and to the 12th day. It is preferable to perform it on the first day, the 10th, right after Eid Salah. Qurbani, however, cannot be performed before the Eid prayer is over. So say for example, someone, he has express, or he just happens to be at the farm before Fajr Salah that day, and he's like, let me sort this out because I'm not coming back to the farm. His Qurbani will not be accepted, and he will have to slaughter again. Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we'll get to that. And who performs Qurbani? Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that person who is capable of performing Qurbani, who's capable, he has the monetary means to perform Qurbani, but he doesn't perform Qurbani, then he shouldn't even come to the place where Eid Salah is being prayed. He should just stay away from it, because that's how serious it is. Every sane adult Muslim, so if a person's crazy, he's not going to slaughter. Adult Muslim, so children, it's not obligatory upon them. But if you have a child there, he can slaughter the animal, and that's encouraged also. Male or female, not traveling. If you're traveling, then you don't have to perform the Qurbani. Who possess nisab. Nisab can either be gold or silver nisab. So if a person, he takes a silver nisab, that means a person on the day of Eid, if he possesses that amount. So the silver nisab is about $300 and the gold nisab is about $800. So depending on which nisab a person he chooses, then if he has that amount, then he has to perform Qurbani. Each adult member of a family who owns the above mentioned amount must perform his own Qurbani separately. You cannot take you cannot take a goat, for example. A goat is one share, a sheep is one share. So if a person, say for example a husband, he has that amount on the day of Eid and he has to perform Qurbani, and the wife as well has that amount, then she also has to perform a separate Qurbani. That one, the husband slaughtering is not on behalf of the family. This is according to the Hanafi madhab. Which animals can you slaughter? You have 6 choices. You can only slaughter these animals because these are the animals that were mentioned in the ahadith. If it's a sheep, then the sheep must be at least 6 months old. If it is a goat, then the goat has to be at least 1 year old. If it's a cow, ox, or buffalo, they have to be at least 2 years old for your Qurbani to count. Meaning not if you want to make it halal. If you want your Qurbani to count, meaning you have Qurbani is wajib upon me, and I want to discharge that responsibility. So these are the conditions required if you want to discharge that responsibility. You have to sacrifice these particular animals. If you want to sacrifice a camel, then 5 years. Sheep and goats will suffice for one person's udhiyah. Cows and camels, they have 7 shares each. So 7 people together, they can come together and they could sacrifice 1 cow. And that cow will suffice for 7 people's Qurbanis. Which animals can you slaughter? Now the books of fiqh, they mention that, okay, you can slaughter this animal or you can slaughter this animal, don't do that, do this, make sure the animal is like this. So I'm just going to list all of the ones that you cannot slaughter. If it's not on this list, then you can slaughter it. So you can't slaughter a blind, one-eyed or lame animal, an animal so skinny that it cannot walk to its slaughtering place, an animal with 1/3 part of the ear or the nose or the tail missing, you can't slaughter that animal. If there's no teeth at all, animal born without ears, an animal whose horns are uprooted. So he's been dehorned to such an extent that it actually took a part of his brain out. Not an animal born without horns. So all of these animals, these all cannot be used for Qurbani. If you do slaughter one of these animals, then the meat will be halal, yes. But your wajib, the wujub, will not be discharged. Your Qurbani will not count. You will have to slaughter a good animal. And it's in the spirit of Qurbani, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he used to sacrifice the best animal that he could find. The ram, the alpha goat, the actual goat. You know, there's an acronym, greatest of all time. But he used to actually sacrifice the greatest animal he could find. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves ihsan in everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves perfection. So you should choose the choicest animal to be offered for your Qurbani. How do you slaughter? How do you slaughter? These are the do's. There are 6 do's and there are 5 don'ts. The animal, actually there's 5, 6. The animal should be placed on its left side facing the Qibla. It is more virtuous to slaughter the animal with one's own hands. So if a person, he's anemic, he can't stand the sight of blood, we understand someone else can do it on his behalf, that's there. But if a person, he should get into the spirit of Qurbani, he should be involved in bringing the animal, moving the animal, slaughtering the animal, skinning the animal, even cooking the animal, and even eating the animal also. So he should slaughter with his own hands. When slaughtering, it is necessary to recite Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. So if a person, for example, say he is the go-to guy for slaughtering, and he's slaughtering on behalf of so many families, and he has to do like 50 Qurbanis an hour, just sheep after sheep, goat after goat. He's supposed to recite Bismillah every single time, but say for example, he's just in the heat of the moment and he forgets because he's going through so many, then if he forgets, the animal will still be halal. But if he knows that I have to recite this, but I'm not going to recite this, then that animal will not be halal. He has to recite it, otherwise the animal won't be halal. Do use a sharp knife and slaughter the animal quickly so that it does not suffer. We are not cutting bread. We are not going to struggle, because it causes unnecessary pain and taklif to the animal. We want to make it as quick and as swift as possible. So you have a very, very sharp knife and you cut 4 veins. You cut 2 blood veins, and you cut the windpipe and you cut the food pipe. Once these 4, veins are slaughtered, then the animal is considered to be halal. Before we get into this point, also another thing, when you cut the animal, you should not just straight cutting, you should also move the blade a little bit forward and move the blade a little bit backward, just to make sure you get all the veins. It's mustahab for the one who intends to perform Qurbani. So if you know that, okay, on Eid, I will have that amount and Qurbani will be wajib upon me, then it is mustahab for that person to make sure he doesn't cut his nails, make sure he doesn't cut his hair. Mustahab means that if he does cut, unfortunately, people think that he's not allowed to cut it at all. This is not true. I'm not sort of trying to trivialize something that's mustahab, but because people, they overdid it and they think that you have to keep your, you have to keep your nails and you have to keep your hair. That's why I'm saying it's mustahab. If a person he decides not to do that, he doesn't have to do that. And if a person's not doing Qurbani at all, then he's not even in the discussion. For him, even more so. But if a person decides to do it, then he should definitely do that because of the hadith. What you shouldn't do when you are slaughtering an animal. Do not leave the animal hungry or thirsty before slaughtering. We should make sure that the animal is well fed. We should make sure that the animal, before slaughtering it, give it a few drops of water to drink. Do not sharpen the knife in front of the animal, because then you're giving the animal 2 deaths. It's knowing it's going to die. Do not skin the animal before it becomes completely cold. If there's still movement inside the animal, then we shouldn't skin the animal. We should wait until it becomes completely motionless and life has completely exited the body. When you slaughter, then our method of slaughtering dhabiha, it ensures all the impure blood leaves the body of the animal. So the more blood that is leaving the animal, the better it is, the more fresh the meat tastes. So when you slaughter the animal, suddenly the head of the animal is not receiving blood. So the head of the animal is saying, okay, I need more blood. So it's sending messages to the rest of the body, send me more blood. That's why you see the animal, it starts kicking and it starts becoming all rowdy, and more blood splurts out. And the more blood that splurts out, the better it is for the meat. Do not slaughter one animal in the presence of another animal. That's just messed up. Do not slaughter with such force that the head is severed completely and the knife reaches the spinal cord. What you want to do, you only want to suffice on these 4 veins. The animal becomes halal after that. After it becomes motionless, then you can separate the head from the body. It shouldn't be that you apply so much force that you end up breaking the spinal cord and it's just causing unnecessary pain. And if a person does that, then the animal, the action is makruh, where the animal becomes halal, but the action he performed is makruh, and we should stay away from that. And do not drag the animal to the place of slaughter or mistreat it in any way. So we should carry the animal very gently, very kindly. We shouldn't drag it on its feet. We shouldn't kick the animal to make it stop moving and things of that nature. Just treat the animal humanely. Here are a few points to keep in mind. We are coming to the end. We should ensure the meat is properly distributed. Properly distributed in the hadith, Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions that 1/3 should be for the family and 1/3 should be given in sadaqah, and 1/3 should be given as gifts and given to others. So 1/3 you keep for yourself, 1/3 you give gifts, 1/3 for sadaqah. Some people, they have their own sort of distribution technique. So they would say, no, actually 1/3 is going to the fridge, and 1/3 we are going to have a barbecue the next day, and 1/3 we are going to reserve it for people who give us meat, because there's an exchange of meat. So if they give us meat, then we're going to give them meat. Otherwise we're not going to give them any meat. That's the first point. Qurbani meat, because it's you can give it to Muslims, you can give it to non-Muslims, any type of friend, any type of family. Qurbani meat should be given preference over all other food. The day of Eid is not a day of chicken biryani. When the meat of Qurbani comes, then that becomes the king of the table, that becomes the king of the dastarkhan. Like I mentioned, Hazrat Shaykh, he would only eat the meat for 3 days, he wouldn't eat anything else. So it's a day of beef biryani, it's a day of goat biryani, it's a day of mutton biryani, and this should be the first thing that enters our stomach during that day. Number 3, Qurbani is not charity. It is permissible to send your Qurbani overseas. And because we're just discussing this topic, I'll get into it a little bit more. There are many people in different countries, in Africa, in India, in Pakistan, in Syria, in many different countries, who don't have the luxury of eating meat all the time. So many countries, we hear the karguzaris, we hear the reports, South America, all these places, that the only time these people are so poor, the only time they see meat, they don't even think about having meat during the rest of the year. The only time they see meat is when Muslims from other countries, during the day of Eid al-Adha, they send meat over to them. And that's the only time they'll see, they'll have a proper meal with meat. So for them, it's a very big luxury. Qurbani, for us, is not a time where we give charity to others. Just listen, hear me out. Qurbani for us is, we're supposed to be part of the Qurbani. We're supposed to enjoy the Qurbani. We're supposed to be slaughtering. We're supposed to be involved. We're supposed to partake in this feasting of the Qurbani meat. So the people who slaughter here locally. If they want to send their Qurbani overseas, they can definitely send their Qurbani overseas. It's very cheap to do so. It might only be $100 for a goat or $100 for a sheep. In some places it might be $200 for even an entire cow. But obviously that cow isn't going to be like, the big cows in America. Is going to be a very skinny cow, but a cow nonetheless. But if a person, he is planning on sending his Qurbani overseas, like for example, some people, they might be a college student or he's working, he just doesn't have a fridge to keep all that meat with him. So he wants to send his Qurbani overseas. He can do so. But if a person has the means to do Qurbani locally and send the Qurbani overseas, he should do that. That's the best thing. So it's not only my Qurbani, I'm going to send it overseas to help those people. No, Qurbani is a personal ibadah, just like how we pray salah, just as how we do dhikr, just how we do tilawat. Qurbani is a personal ibadah that we have to perform ourselves as much as we can. So that's what I mean when I say Qurbani is not charity. The virtues of Udhiyah, subhanallah. So turn in prayer towards your Lord and sacrifice. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar. So turn in prayer towards your Lord and sacrifice, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sacrifice. Over here the word sacrifice, the mufassirun, they say, refers to Udhiyah. So Udhiyah is mentioned in the Quran, sacrificing. This is a hadith narrated in Tirmidhi and Ibn Majah. Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, there's nothing dearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the days of Qurbani than the sacrificing of animals. That sacrificed animal shall come on the day of judgment with its horns, with its hooves, with its hair, with its wool to be weighed. And however much it weighs, that is how much our good deeds will be increased on the day of Qiyamah. The sacrifice is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the blood touches the ground. Therefore, sacrifice with an open and happy heart. We shouldn't think that, oh man, it's time for Udhiyah again, I'm going to have to take out a few $100s to do my sacrifice. No, we should do it. This is an express ibadah to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there's nothing more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these days than iraqatud dam, the flowing of blood of the sacrifice of the Muslims throughout the world. Zayd ibn al-Arqam, he radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he relates that Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that, what's Ma hadhihi al-adahi ya Rasul? What are these? Why do we do this? Why do we sacrifice so many animals? Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that this was sunnatu abikum Ibrahim, that this was the sunnah of your father Ibrahim alayhi salam. They asked again, what benefit do we get from it? He said, a reward for every single piece of hair on that animal's body. We can't even count. We can't even say subhanallah that many times probably in our life. So the Sahaba, they were very, some of them, they didn't have goats. Some of them had sheep. So obviously the question is going to come, what about sheep? They don't have hair, because they used to use a different word for, the hair of the sheep. So what about the animals with wool, O Rasulullah? They asked a reward for every fiber of wool. This is reported in Ibn Majah. SubhanAllah, how can we, even if we can't perform our Qurbani locally, or we should try to send our Qurbani somewhere just so we could fall under the purview of this riwayah, so we can be included in this great action that only comes once a year, and we don't have the opportunity. After Eid Salah, after those 3 days, you can slaughter an animal. Maybe you just want to have some meat, but you won't get the reward like this. You'll just slaughter an animal. We should all try to slaughter the animals ourselves as we can. We should try to get as involved as possible. Our principal, he used to always remind us of Mufti Mahmud al-Hassan, who passed away in 1920. His Qurbani, how was his Qurbani? What he used to do, he wanted to feel. Remember, this is the spirit of Udhiyah, is to commemorate the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam when he was sacrificing his own son. How did Ibrahim alayhi salam feel that sacrifice? Sacrificing your nafs, sacrificing everything that's beloved to you. We don't have to sacrifice our sons. We won't have to sacrifice our parents. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to sacrifice is, there will be a decision we have to make. There will be a bridge between us and that deed of haram, that act of disobedience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, put one knife on your nafs, sacrifice, cut off that bridge, and don't do that, don't commit that act. Shaykhul Hind Mufti Mahmud al-Hassan, he wanted to experience this sacrifice. So what would he do during these days? he would actually, as soon as Eid would be done, as soon as he sacrificed his animal, he would buy another one, a baby animal. Oh my God. He would buy a baby animal, and for 1 year, that would become the pet of his family. I don't know what he would name it, maybe Zayd or Bakr, because Bakri. So that would become, the kids would become attached to it, the wife would become attached to it, they would play with the goat, they would feed the goat, they would take care of the goat. It was narrated that this goat was such, after Shaykh al-Hind, he used to finish teaching his durus and his asbaq in the higher alim course. After he finishes Bukhari or something like that, he would come, and outside that goat would be waiting for him. And during the day of Eid al-Adha, now the entire family has to sacrifice that goat. What kind of sacrifice must that have been? Imagine sacrificing your cat. I mean, that's unbelievable. So he would do it for a few years. He would do it 1 year to feel, just to get a small iota of that feeling that Ibrahim alayhi salam must have gotten when he was asked to sacrifice his own son. So he did it for a year, but then he tried to do it again, and his wife was like, no, it's not going to work out anymore. So then, he didn't do it after that. But this was, in recent times. This is 1920. It's not so far away. We can also learn lessons from our animals. And this is the second to last slide. The first lesson is, don't become neglectful of death. Anybody who is involved in the Qurbani, they're the ones who learn these lessons, because a person, if you see in that pen where the sheep are, sitting, they're talking, they're gossiping, they're talking, oh, do you know Bakr got slaughtered the other day? So they're not worried about anything. And suddenly the slaughterer, he comes inside the pen and he grabs one of the sheep, and suddenly all the sheep, they start running around. They go to the corner, the farthest corner, and so they're not the ones being selected. And their friend gets taken away. And after 5 minutes, they start talking and gossiping again. They start eating, and it's like, oh man, Zayd is gone now, But did you see that one TV show the other day? They start gossiping again. Man, that hay was really good that we had the other day. Where did they get it from? So, immediate ghafla. They see their brother or sister or father or mother, grandfather just being slaughtered right there. And a few seconds later, they're back to their original life. It shouldn't be. We see so many deaths occurring inside the haram. They're going to see when they're praying salah, after every single salah, there's janazah. As-salatu ala al-amwat. Every single salah, there's a janazah. It shouldn't be that we see so many janazahs coming that we forget that one day my janazah also has to come. Because at the end of the day, every single sheep inside that pen, he's going to become slaughter, he's going to become biryani. The more you spend, the more you get. When the sheep, if you draw a comparison between sheep and goats and cows, every single year around 45 million sheep and goats, they get slaughtered. And cows, millions of cows get slaughtered. So when the sheep or the goat, they sort of put their life and they give their life to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in their progeny and their nasl. Whereas you see cats and dogs, they give birth 101 Dalmatians at a time. They have 4 puppies or 5, 6, maybe 9, 10 in one litter of puppies, or the kittens that come out. But we don't see cats and dogs everywhere. There's too many. But we see there's never a shortage of these goats and sheep. There's always enough. Nobody ever complained that, oh man, we ran out of sheep this year. Maybe we have to wait until next year. No, there's always leftover, and it's obviously because, it's from the leftover that we get like the rest every single year. But the more you spend, the more you get. So they sacrifice themselves for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakat in their numbers. And the last thing I want to touch on is virtue depends on connection. You have a brick. A brick is just dust. You have the brick of your house, the brick of your bathroom. The brick of your bathroom is useless. Nobody would want to touch that. The brick of your house, okay, a little bit better, still useless. But you came here for the stone dedication event, the brick of Dar es Salaam. Whoa. So much importance to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and becoming a part of the legacy of Dar es Salaam. I still think you can sign some bricks. They're outside. You can speak with Maulana Farhan, right? It's not the brick that has value. It's the connection of the brick to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gives it its value. It's the brick, that same brick, if you connect it to, if it's a brick of Masjid al-Nabawi, how much that value increased. And if it's a brick of the Kaaba itself, how much value wouldn't that brick have? That brick has so much value. The same way, an animal can be a normal animal, normal sheep, normal goat. But when that animal becomes an animal of udhiyah, when that animal becomes a sacrificial lamb, in the literal sense, when that animal gives its life up for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not a normal animal anymore. Now that animal has become so valuable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that for every single hair, it's worth one reward in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same way, you have a bottle. Making glass is not hard. You take some sand and you make some glass, is not hard. And if it's a cheap bottle, it's not hard. Bottle. It's not about the bottle that makes it valuable. It's about the itr that gets placed inside that bottle. Some itr you can buy for $1. Some itr you can buy for $10. Some itr you buy for $100. Some itr you buy for hundreds of dollars. Depending on the itr that's placed inside the bottle, that's how valuable now that bottle becomes. So the same way in each and every single one of us, our hearts, we are created from dirt. We are created from dirt. We're nothing more than a pile of dirt. We are nothing more than a bundle of insignificant events. So that dirt, we have a container. That container is our heart. If that heart is filled with lust, and if it's filled with greed, if it's filled with pride, if it's filled with anger, if it's filled with kufr, and if it's filled with disbelief, and it's disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that means the rest of the body is useless. The container of the body is useless because whatever the container contains, the heart, is also useless. But if our container is filled with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our container is filled with shukr, our container is filled with sabr, piety, our container is filled with generosity, our container is filled with enjoining good and forbidding evil, our container is filled with the ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our container is filled with the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our container is filled with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then because our container is so valuable, the heart, it makes us, the entire body, become valuable. And that's exactly what wilayat is, to become a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We just want to make this body of dust and body of dirt become valuable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our virtue depends on connection. After we finish Qurbani, we're not done yet. The season continues. Umar, Ali, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in are all reported to have recited the following takbirs from the morning of the day of Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, till the Asr Salah of 13th of Dhul Hijjah. Usually the night comes before the day, but it's flipped on the day of Arafah. So this is the takbir. In many narrations there are different versions of takbir. This particular version of takbir is narrated in Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, Awsat of Ibn al-Mundhir, Al-Mu'jam al-Kabir. You can see Nasb al-Raya and Umdat al-Qari and Majmu' al-Zawaid for further authentication. Sometimes you have 3 takbirs. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. That's how we recite it in our masjid. In Florida, in Miami, that's just how my Imam Sahib, he recites it, so I love to recite it like that. But you have the normal one. How does it go again? Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. So we should recite that for a total of 23 salah. It is wajib for every Muslim adult, male or female, to recite this at least once immediately after every single fard salah. And women will recite the takbirat silently, men will recite the takbirat out loud. And we have come now to the end of the program. Jazakumullahu Khairun for sitting. We hope that we learn something and we can make amal and we can enjoy the sacred season and we can take full benefit from these days of Dhul Hijjah, and we should not let this time go to waste. There's an English nursery rhyme that the Muslims have sort of adopted during this time, and we sort of tweaked it and we made it more Muslim. You know, you have Mary had a little lamb. So the Muslim version during the days of Eid is Maryam had a little lamb, now she doesn't. Eid Mubarak. You know, so then